Nita sucks, and we established that, and now I feel like we're warm for the podcast.
Now I feel warm.
I feel warm.
Okay.
Is it hot in here? I feel warm.
Girl, is it hot in here?
Girl, it's hot in here. Okay. Welcome back to another episode of My Body, My Jokes. It's me, Morgan, yay! And we're in Dude IDK Studios, and Winnie is walking around in the back messing with the curtains. If you don't know Winnie by now, you gotta get to know her. You gotta watch the video. Winnie is the best studio dog. If you're listening to the pod, if you're supporting the pod in any way, I really appreciate you. Throw me a like, throw me a comment, throw me an email anytime you have something to share. mybodymyjokespod@gmail.com. Love to hear from you guys. Love the support in any way. This is episode 26. We've done 26 episodes. Yeah. So we're making our way. You know, I've been doing this since last July, I believe. So we're coming up on that year. But I believe this comes out maybe a few days, probably a day before. But the Roast of Diet Culture show is a show that I'll be doing. I'll be hosting with the Eating Disorder Foundation. It's February 27th. It's at the Mercury Cafe right here in Denver. It's going to be me and a bunch of other like awesome Denver comedians roasting diet culture, talking shit about wellness influencers and diets and all these things. So if that sounds like fun to you, go to the link in the show notes, the link in my bio, my website. It's literally linked everywhere. It's going to be an awesome show, February 27th. And then one other thing that's really exciting is I was nominated for a Diva, which is a drag and initiative. What is it? Fuck, I forgot what the thing is. The Drag Initiatives and Variety Awards of Denver. And I got nominated for the Podcast Award, which is kind of crazy. I did not see that coming at all. So it's all vote based. So if you go to, I think it's coloradodivaawards.com, I'll have it linked everywhere, and vote for me because I'm really excited about this podcast. And I've had a few of the queens here in Colorado on the pod, and it's been really exciting. And I think hopefully it's being recognized because it's, you know, pushing against diet culture and is talking about stuff that matters in this world. So if you want to vote for me, that would be awesome. But enough about me. Today we have a guest that I am very excited to have. I've been wanting to have her on the pod for a long time. She's an incredibly talented writer, and she hosts a podcast right here at Dude IDK Studios called Did That Age Well? Welcome, Molly Smith.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi. I love an acronym that or the name of something that starts with an acronym and then works backwards. You know what I mean? When they're it's Diva. So what can we fill in there?
Right.
I love that. I'm obsessed with it. And congratulations on your nomination.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yay.
I know it's a fun acronym because Diva is very drag coded.
It's so drag coded.
But it's awesome that it's like stands for Drag Initiatives and Variety.
Yes.
Because it's like it's like best photographer, best drag artist, best backup dancer. There's so many awards.
Yes.
So that's going to be really cool.
Love the recognition.
But you are here because, well, you're my friend, first of all.
First and foremost.
And second of all, you and I have very similar experiences and have gone through very similar, I guess just like life quests. So tell me a little bit about like your background and who you are and your qualifications to be here today.
Okay, great. Well, qualification first, friend. Second, I'm so funny.
Also that.
Thank you so much. So like Morgan said, I host the Did That Age Well podcast right here at Dude IDK Studios. And I just love to yap. I love to talk.
Don't we all?
Girl.
Don't we all? Certified yappers.
Certified yappers. And I've had a really interesting, to me, relationship with my body. Like I was going to just say I've had a really interesting relationship to my body, but like I can't say that everyone's gonna find it interesting, but I do, you know.
I think it is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you too. But it's just been so fun over the past year, like building a friendship with you and also just connecting over our anti-diet values and like food and body stuff and social media and everything. So that's a little about me.
Love it.
Yeah.
And you know that I ask everyone on this podcast the same
Yes.
question. So I'd like to know, Molly,
Okay.
what is your current relationship with your body?
So I was thinking about this over the past couple of days, and the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know what? I'm just going to check in with my body when I get there. Because who knows? Right now, I feel like my relationship to my body is very,
Take your time.
thanks,
it's okay.
girl. It's hard to predict at any point what my relationship to my body is going to be like. I would say that it's volatile, but that sounds a little bit aggro. It feels as though
Fluid.
it's fluid, girl. It is fluid.
It's fluid. Yeah.
It's fluid because my body has changed a lot over the past few years.
Yeah.
Whereas from the time that I was in high school through most of my 20s, I knew exactly how I was going to feel about my body. I knew exactly what size I could expect myself to be. I never bought clothes and thought, I wonder if this will fit me in a few months. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It was like
God.
I was, my body looked the same for years. And then over the past few years, it hasn't. And so I feel like I'm in this state of constantly adjusting to body acceptance in a way that is trying to not be conditional on what my body size is.
Right.
Because for so long it just was. I felt so neutral about my body because I knew exactly what to expect. And now I don't.
Yeah. No, I think that's very relatable. I'm very much in the same boat. I can feel very confident one day and then feel completely just broken the next. And I think that's just part of recovery, honestly. I feel like most people who go through recovery from a diagnosed eating disorder or disordered eating understand that it's so fluid, because it's not just about the changes in the body, it's also perceived changes in the body that aren't real. You know what I mean?
Dude.
Waking up and being oh my God, I have a double chin today. And then being the next day, oh my God, I'm snatched. It's so difficult to feel grounded in that way. But I am hoping that at some point it levels out.
It feels like I'm an unreliable narrator.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh no, that's the perfect way to describe it.
Yeah, it feels like I'm trying to build more self-trust. But it's hard when I feel like I can't trust myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's you want to be able to look in the mirror and feel neutral or accepting, or even on the better end, positive.
Yeah.
But then it's well, how do I know that the messages I'm telling myself are, number one, true, and number two, helpful,
and according to who?
Yeah,
you know
exactly,
what I mean?
Exactly. It's so crazy. So I appreciate your honesty, because I think that's very important to note, that of all the people that listen to the podcast or who are a part of the kind of anti-diet movement or the body positive movement, it can feel really easy to, or it seems really easy to find other people that have already gotten to the place of acceptance and be wow, that's so awesome that they are there, but how do I get there?
Right. It feels like there's this, whenever I struggle with body image, or whenever I feel like I'm being mean to my body, it feels like it's not aligned with my values. I think that if you ask pretty much anyone who has struggled with disordered eating or with body image, which is probably most people, there can be this attitude of oh, it's totally being fat is beautiful, but just not for me.
Yes.
Or
yes.
I feel like I never think about other people or say the things about other people that I say to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And absolutely.
That's messed up.
Yeah, that's a very common thing that I also have found on TikTok, weirdly enough. And now I deleted TikTok the day that they banned it. And so now I can't re-download it from the App Store.
She can't re-download it.
But there was a time when because the algorithm can't tell the difference between like diet culture content and anti-diet culture content, it just puts it all under the like category of like health.
Oh God.
I would get a lot of like anti-diet body positive stuff, but then I would also get like the follow me on my weight loss journey thing.
Oh no.
And I would notice there were a lot of videos of young girls, like young, like younger than us, like early 20s, like late teens, who would talk about like, I'm body positive and I think everyone should like love themselves, but like I am fat phobic for myself because I don't want to be fat. And they had no problem saying that.
Wow.
Which is wild.
That is wild. I mean, I do feel like we are entering an era where people are, maybe it's more accepted, or we have more language to describe internalized feelings about ourselves, like internalized homophobia or internalized misogyny or internalized fat phobia, where we can kind of name and express that we have these underlying biases, but that they mostly apply to ourselves.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. It's like we can see the world outside of us and be okay with it, but when we look in the mirror, if it's reflected back at us, it's scary.
Totally.
Yeah.
Ugh,
okay,
girl.
so speaking of eras,
Let's talk about eras.
we went back and forth about what we should talk about today,
Yes.
and we came up with something that I think is very funny and also kind of fucking terrifying.
So terrifying. I feel like I was on... Oh, actually, okay, you go ahead. You go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm getting too excited.
We were sending voice memos back and forth to each other like, okay, so what about this? Okay, wait, but this also, okay, this is my experience. So something that I've always wanted to talk about and I think is very relevant to today is the wellness to alt-right pipeline.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is the idea that there are folks out there, whether it's an influencer, an actor, someone who has a platform, or honestly someone who doesn't have a platform, who kind of enters into the world of health and wellness. They dip their toes in and very slowly starts to descend the levels into conspiracy, into anti-vax, into alt-right, into, oh my God, Donald Trump's gonna save us all, everyone's a pedophile, right? Like it's a very slippery slope. What was the first thing that came to your mind when we like first brought up that subject?
I thought immediately about Whole30.
Fuck yeah.
Girl, I know that we could do, and I'm sure that eventually you will do, an entire episode on, or have you already done an episode
I
on
haven't.
Whole30? Okay. So I thought about Whole30 because it's really one of the only, like, it's the only fad diet that I've ever participated in. And I participated in it because I, of course, bought the marketing that it's like not a diet. Yeah. They're like, you don't weigh yourself, you don't measure yourself, like it's just based on how you feel.
Right.
But it was, I mean, because I had really valued real foods and whole foods, and I
quote
also
unquote.
Quote unquote, yes, I forgot that some people are listening to this just audio. So yes, all food is real. Unless it's fake, unless it's like Fisher Price, you know,
plastic chicken wing the size of your palm.
Other than that, food is real. But I was really into like the real food, whole food, organic.
Right.
I don't eat meat, and for a while I was eating vegan, and for reasons that like are still aligned with some of my values, but it was a really slippery slope into like not trusting the FDA, which like is fair. You know, there's like still some things that I feel like I don't know if that's like exactly where I would trust my guidance for food, but like going from that into like believing things like all, you know, foods are better for you if they're raw compared to if they're cooked, or things like I don't know, just using more quote unquote whole ingredients and making things from scratch. Like it started from a place of what I felt was common sense. And then it ended up with me cutting out 5 of the most important food groups in like doing Whole30.
Which was what?
So from
like
what I
grains?
remember, it's no grains, no added sugar, no no alcohol, which I don't drink, so that was like
but
whatever.
is a major food group to some people.
A major food group to many, and God bless you. No beans, no like legumes. What? Yeah. And no dairy. So, and
dude,
as a person who doesn't eat meat, like I decided like during that time that I was going to eat fish because I was like, I have to compromise on something, because basically you just eat proteins and vegetables and fruits. That's pretty much what it is.
Gross.
I know. And it was like really marketed as kind of a cleanse or as an elimination diet to find out what kind of foods make you feel good and what kind of foods make you feel bad. I didn't really have any ailments though. I was like, I guess I'll just try it.
Maybe I'll just do this.
I was like, maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll find out that I feel so much better if I don't eat, I don't know, like dairy or something like that.
That's a very common thing to do nowadays is do the elimination diet.
Yeah.
So many people have done that and then have come out of it being like, oh, I think I'm lactose intolerant now, or I think I might have a gluten sensitivity, or and it might just be that they feel better not eating those things, but it's not like a medical necessity that they cut them out. Yeah,
totally. And like for some people, there's I'm not a doctor. I know that for some people, like eliminating some food groups, especially if you have like, an allergy or like food preferences or whatever. Like I don't mean to like shit on that. What I mean to shit on is like this non-evidence-based guide to just cutting out most of what I was eating for 30 days. And I was so strict about it. I committed to it for the whole 30 days and it felt so like powerful. Yeah. I came out of the 30 days being like, wow, I crushed that. Like I had this competitiveness in me that made me feel like I'm doing whole foods the best. Yep. And I think that's such a slippery slope because once you get that like moral association with different types of foods or like the way that you're eating or like, oh, I'm like mentally and physically stronger than other people because I didn't put cream in my coffee for a month. You know what I mean? Like, which makes people often feel emboldened to espouse their way of eating as the right and moral way.
Yeah. Eating disorders and disordered eating thrive in perfectionism and in secrecy. Yes. So anytime there is an element of competition, anytime there is an element of I get to check all these boxes, it fuels that like dopamine release of like, oh, I'm doing something right, even if it's not healthy for you. I didn't know Whole30 was that crazy. I genuinely didn't really know what Whole30 was until like a few years ago. It was just not something on my radar.
God bless. You're so lucky.
But one of my friends did it when I used to work at a college and like she was always like, oh, thank God LaCroix is Whole30 approved or whatever the fuck. And I was like, okay. Like I was like, it's drink your sparkling water and shut up. Like it was anyway. Okay. So it's interesting that that's what you think of because it is part of what I researched and kind of like came up with to talk about today is that slippery slope, right? It's a pipeline, literally.
Yes, it's like a pipeline.
The same way that a lot of like women who, kind of go through struggle with like body dysmorphia or disordered eating tend to get into like really heavy lifting or like doing something that makes them feel really powerful because it's like the opposite of what they were told to do. Right. It's a similar notion of I want to get into new age / alternative medicine because I don't believe in big pharma. I don't believe in what we're being fed or sold or whatever. Yeah. So I'm going to look at, being in the sun for more times a day. I'm going to look at maybe cutting out a specific type of processed food. And it's so innocent. And it's so like, oh, I'm going to do acupuncture instead of this. I'm going to go to therapy. And then very quickly it turns into, oh, I don't trust the government. Exactly. I don't trust what we are being told. And I actually am an expert in what I'm doing because I'm doing my own research. But the problem is that so much information on the internet is incorrect. So much of it is propaganda, and so much of it comes from our capitalist society, which is even if a company claims that they're new age or alternative and they're selling you something that's like the government doesn't want you to know, it still thrives off of your profit.
Yeah, they're still literally selling it to you.
Yeah. So a common theme that I found in like a bunch of articles I read was this idea of like, do your research, right? Like a lot of people who go into alternative medicine or look towards, is it pronounced naturopathy? I think so.
Yeah, like naturopathic medicine.
Yeah, people who look towards that kind of sector of healing always feel emboldened to do their own research.
Yeah.
And go on any website, whatever, right? And the thing is that our internet now functions in an algorithm. Yeah. It no longer is this kind of like, I don't know, textbook where you can look at the glossary and be like, this is the information I'm seeking. It's like, if you go on YouTube and you type in like natural ways to heal, I don't know, PCOS, right? Yeah. You're going to find women talking about, oh, I did this and it relieved my cramps. Oh, I did this. And then in the suggestion bar, there's going to be videos that go deeper and deeper and deeper until eventually you're looking at one that's like QAnon, right? Because it's the same kind of idea of like, you are emboldening yourself to do research. You don't trust the government. Oh, now there's all these people that actually know what the government doesn't want us to know. Yeah. What else is going on? Now it's just not a health thing. Now it's like a save the children thing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I just had a lot of them had like questioning of authority, distrust of institutions. Yeah. Also interesting is that a lot of this movement is led by white women.
That is the thing that is so baffling, is that like, I think for historically marginalized groups with like, which like, of course, women are a marginalized group, but like the whiteness baked into wellness culture and the distrust of institutions is so whack because
go off, Molly.
Thank you. Because like, on the one hand, it is understandable that there would be distrust in institutions, for instance, that tell us like you need 11 servings of grains. It's like, what is that? What is 11 servings of grains? Or like, you know, like institutions that have like big pharma in their pocket and stuff like that. Like it's, of course, it's like difficult to trust as any person, but as a person with a marginalized identity, like for instance, if you were like a Black person who your grandparents or your parents were a part of literally like experiments on people's bodies run by the government, then like, yeah, of course you don't trust the government. But like the whiteness baked into the wellness culture thing, I mean, there's so many different reasons for it, but it's so baffling to me that like that's the group that really is leading the charge in this. I think because like white people are seen as voices of authority, and so the message is going to transcend quicker. Yeah. If it's,
you know what I think it is too is like, I don't know if this makes sense, but I feel like sometimes questioning the government almost comes from a place of privilege. Yeah. Where it's like, if you are already set up in a system that is made to benefit you, you probably don't rely on government assistance, government guidance. Yep. So you are able to like stay at home and spend money on like baking your own bread and growing your own things and like doing the thing that I guess the government quote unquote doesn't want you to do, right? Because they want you to go out and spend your money and be a part of the economy. Yeah. So it's like the idea that you have this privilege as a white person because you've already been platformed in your life, whether you know it or not, so that you don't have to rely on the government for certain things. Right. Whereas the marginalized communities who are put in places because of how fucked up our society is and they need to rely on like food stamps or assistance or disability, like they don't necessarily always have the ability to be like, yeah, the government is fucking us. Although there are a lot of like very deep red states where people do rely on the government and they still are like, fuck the government, which is crazy because they still cash their unemployment check. But it's like, that's a whole other episode.
That's a whole other thing. But it is interesting thinking about like, even in this like socio-political climate, for me, I know that like my body is under attack because I'm a woman and abortion is illegal in many states and because like our rights aren't protected in many states. But like I do live in Colorado,
right,
where that constitutional right is sealed and it is firm, and I won't, if I needed to get an abortion, I could.
Yep.
And also, like, I could afford it if it wasn't covered by insurance or whatever.
Right.
But I still, of course, I'm like, yeah, I don't trust the government to make decisions about my body.
Yes.
But that's like, I feel like something that is also a big part of the rhetoric of the wellness to QAnon pipeline basically is like just this generalization of like the government.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it can mean so many different things. Like we see now even conservative leadership being like, we don't trust the government. It's like, bitch, you are the government.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
You're the government.
Like the mayor of your city is the government.
The government.
Like the people who drive snowplows, that's the government. Like, that's such an interesting point. Do you know what QAnon is?
I do.
Okay, because I'm going to give a definition for people who may not understand, because for the longest time, I thought QAnon was like a platform or like a place to go to kind of spread conspiracy theories.
Right, like a truth social or something.
Yes, but QAnon is actually a conspiracy in and of itself. It's the idea that there is this source, an anonymous source, and their name is Q, and they are funneling their information, these government secrets, through people who are seen as QAnon leaders, like influencers, YouTubers, people who, it's almost like a cult. Like they claim they get their word from God, right? But their word is from, this guy Q in the government, whoever the fuck that is. But it's the idea that actually Donald Trump is battling an underground cabal of cannibalistic pedophiles
for sure
in the government, and Trump is going to save us all. And the idea is that all of these pedophiles who eat children are like Democrats, they're Hollywood actors, they're basically anyone and everyone that the far right deems as unsafe. And the kind of through line for everyone that is involved in QAnon, and kind of what the magnet at the center holding everyone is the idea of save the children. We are all here because we care about children, and we are inexplicably concerned about children, and Trump is the one that is gonna fight all the pedophiles, and he's gonna do so. That's what QAnon is.
It's I know I'm not really saying anything new here when I say it's fucking crazy. But
do you want to hear a fun statistic?
I would love to.
So the National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism and Responses to Terrorism did a study of the 31 QAnon followers who were charged at the insurrection on January 6th in Washington, D.C. Over 2/3 of the 31 QAnon followers were proven to have experienced severe mental health conditions. Many of the women sampled of that group became involved in QAnon after learning that their own child had been abused. So a good amount of people who are a part of this, number one, suffer from some kind of mental illness, which in and of itself is like part of life, right? I have a mental illness. I take Wellbutrin. I have, you know what I mean? There's so many people that struggle with mental health. That is not the issue. The issue is, instead of getting help and instead of learning about it and understanding how your brain works, is instead relying on these conspiratorial groups to save children from pedophiles.
To save the children.
Yeah.
The thing that's really funny too about QAnon is the way in which they believe that there are hidden messages everywhere.
Yes.
You could even say my body, my joke. So M is close to Q in the alphabet.
Dude, it's like finding hidden Mickeys at Disney World.
Yeah,
like they're like, oh, there's something going on. Oh,
Something's
Donald
going
Trump
on
just
here.
blinked twice at the camera.
Totally. But then
That's
it's also
nuts.
like, I look at the way that I try and like predict what Beyonce is going to announce next. You know what I mean?
Or
and
Taylor
I'm like,
Swift. You're like,
girl,
oh, there's an Easter egg.
I'm like, an Easter egg?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
No,
and I'm on Reddit. I'm looking through Reddit being like, what's everyone think? What's everyone thinking?
Yeah. Gaylor, is she gay? Was Travis Kelce just a cover up? Yeah. It is interesting when you put it that way, because in a way we are kind of we're part of our own cults.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like you could even argue that us being a part of the kind of anti-diet world is like us being a part of a cult or whatever.
100%.
Which is just kind of how our society functions now.
It really is. Everyone's got everything's so niche.
Yes. Everything is very niche and it's very accessible because of the internet.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is how you end up like me when I was 18 on the beginning days of Instagram, watching someone eat like 18 oranges and be like, it's a mono meal or something like that.
Yeah, a mono meal.
And I'm like, I wonder about that.
So I wonder if I eat a whole thing of Teddy Grahams. Is that a mono meal? Does that count?
Yeah.
So a huge part or a huge, I guess, influx of this pipeline, I would say, a lot of people kind of going down the slide into the pool of alt-rightism happened during COVID.
Oh yeah, big vax.
Yeah, because COVID happened. And it's funny, were you in Colorado during the pandemic?
I was.
Okay, because I was in Florida.
Girl.
So we were in two very different places. And I feel like I watched this play out in real time.
Wow.
Because what happened, I mean, I don't have to relay the pandemic. We all know what happened. The whole world shut down in the middle of March. Yeah. Like everyone was watching TV every single day, wondering what Dr. Fauci was going to say. We were trying to see what Trump was going to do. He was a fucking idiot. Everything was blaming it on China, blah, blah, blah. Right. But very clearly there was an illness going around that was killing people. There was literally a death toll. Do you remember on like every time you turn on the news, there was a death toll on the bottom screen? That was crazy.
So wild.
And every day it'd be like, oh, another 2,000 people died today. And so what happened was also at the rise or during the pandemic, the rise of TikTok happened. Were you on TikTok before 2020?
No.
Okay. I was on TikTok in 2019.
Really?
Because I was a social media manager. And so I was asked to be on TikTok to like understand what the platform is. And I started it where I worked and we had like a brand account, right?
Okay.
And then everyone went home from the pandemic. TikTok blew up. Everyone was like, this is the greatest app ever. It's like Vine, but better or whatever. So a report from the Center of Countering Digital Hate show that the most followed social media accounts held by anti-vaxxers increased their followers by more than 7.8 million in 2020.
Whoa.
Yeah. So people who were already establishing themselves as these kind of anti-vax wellness influencers had like a fucking rise to fame in 2020.
And that's before the vaccine was even made available. That's when the vaccine was being developed.
When was it made available? Was it the end of 2020 or early 2021? Early 2021.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I remember a huge thing that they cited, and all these facts I'm getting from theguardian.com. They have a lot of The Guardian's awesome. They're an independent news source. They're not backed by any billionaires, so they're very, very honorable, I think. But they talked a lot about how like because people were so concerned with the quickness with which the vaccine was created, that it gave anti-vaxxers even more fuel to put on the fire of like, see, there's no way they could create a vaccine this quickly. So why are they asking us all to put it in our arms?
Right.
Yeah.
And the idea of keeping your body pure and keeping like synthetic stuff out of your body, and the idea of like only consuming things that are natural or whatever, like it's so, the ideology is so diet culture coded. Those are all like, those are the same similar values, you know. Not like, I mean, obviously not every diet is predicated on eating quote unquote whole foods, but just the ideology of like, I only want to put pure things in my body is such a, it's like the basis for both of these ideologies.
What's fucked up is also 2020 was a huge year for the Black Lives Matter movement, and it really, really collided with the pandemic in a major way. And a lot of anti-vax influencers use that to their advantage by saying, look at the way the government is mistreating our people of color. So clearly not only is our point valid with the anti-vax thing, but look at the way they're treating people of color. So they were white influencers were using the mistreatment of black people to further their point that you should not trust the government.
Right.
Which is like truly the ballsiest thing that you could do.
To co-opt someone's historical trauma like that.
Yep.
Girl.
I know. That's why I got the last episode I did on the Hims ad. They used the song "This Is America" by.
Oh my God! I know you and I talked about it like very briefly when I saw you last week. You were like, "Did you see the commercial?" And I was like, "Dude,
insanity."
They're like, "This is America, and we hate fat people." So go ahead and
subscribe to us for your GLP-1s that are unregulated.
You know what else is so frustrating is when pharmaceutical companies, now I'm like getting my tinfoil hat on.
Yeah.
So she contains multitudes. How Hims and Hers. Okay. Yeah. So like when they started Hims, it was like, you know, when you have like boner problems, then it was like for girls when you're depressed because your you know, boyfriend can't get it up or whatever. And the drugs that they are giving to people for depression and for anxiety have side effects oftentimes of weight gain, which, like, you know, happens.
Yeah.
And then they're also selling a medication to address weight gain.
Yeah.
It's like it's like when companies that create opiates also benefit on like distributing Narcan. It's like, so you're now,
it's like the most perfect like pyramid scheme for capitalism. It is to sell a problem and also sell the solution.
Girl.
Yeah.
Sorry,
that was a whole episode.
That was a whole episode that you have already done. Just had to.
It's so true. It's so true. Something else that's kind of like a big theme in you know, the alt-right pipeline is like the idea that the people who follow the government are sheeple, right? They're all sheeple. They're all just, you know, they're just taking whatever's being fed. There was an interview that The Guardian did with an influencer who had gone viral. I think we talked about this before the pod, because she was like running through Target, like slapping beauty products off the shelves, being like, "We don't need this. The government won't." Like, she was like basically saying like, "This is all poison." And she was interviewed because she has also now come around the bend and has like was hospitalized for mental health and had kind of went down this whole spiral and divorced her husband and all these things, because she went from being someone who wanted to find a meditation group, finding that meditation group, being indoctrinated by all these other members who are all of a sudden like, not only should you meditate, you should also eat drink raw milk. You should also not, you know, don't have the Wi-Fi turned on near you. You should also all these things, and then descended into the madness of like, she quoted that she saw a doctored image, which she didn't know was doctored, was an old image of Jewish people being ushered onto a boxcar during the Holocaust to go to a concentration camp, and they had all had COVID masks like edited onto them, but they looked like the old-timey like cloth masks. And so in that image, she had found that like someone posted it to Reddit or wherever and was like, first they'd put the masks on you, then they put you in the boxcar. And so they were using like the Holocaust to be like, look, see, first it's the masks and then they're going to kill you. And
oh my God.
She did this whole interview with The Guardian and basically was just admitting like, yeah, it's really hard to get out of it like once you're in it, because you start to think everything you see is true.
And let me take a wild guess and say that this woman was not Jewish.
Nope, she was a blonde-haired white woman who just wanted to use her platform for evil. And like, of course, now she like is a big mental health advocate and talks a lot about like her journey. Yeah,
coming full circle.
I
that
know,
that is amazing. There is hope. That's the thing. If people are willing to like have humility and say like, yeah, I was misguided. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Also, this is I love talking shit about this.
Me too.
A very, very large part of this pipeline that we have to address is the trad wife movement.
Girl,
we have to talk about trad wives.
Let's talk about them.
What's your opinion? What's your take?
So my concept of trad wife always goes to this idea of like, well, my husband wanted an almond cracker, and so I decided
harvested almonds.
So I harvested almonds and I crushed them with my own feet, and then I got the kids out because it's an activity, and then we rolled them out and we created our own wood burning oven so that we could get them nice and crispy, just like he likes them.
I used a rolling pin that I cut off my tree yesterday and shaped into a rolling pin and polished myself.
Yeah.
Do you know who Nara Smith is?
Yes.
Okay, she's kind of the biggest influencer in this realm, right? So
she's so young too.
Yes, she's
oh my
Isn't
God.
she in her early 20s?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like 20.
She's like 22.
22.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, so for those of you listening who may not have heard of the trad wife movement, it stands for traditional wife, or like traditional family values. And it is something that has kind of taken the internet by storm by young white women who want to go back to traditional gender roles, traditional family values, meaning women stay at home, women take care of the children, women cook and clean and forage or whatever. And it's really gotten like very messy because kind of what happened during the pandemic was like everyone learned to make sourdough. Right. Yeah. Everyone learned how to make bread. Everyone took up a new hobby. Everyone became, in a way, their own kind of like homesteader.
Yes.
But it was out of being isolated and out of the necessity of like, oh, I want to learn how to make my own bread. The fucking store's out of bread or whatever. Yeah. And then it snowballed. And now there is this movement of women who not only are very interested in making their own food, growing their own food, I don't know, spinning their own wool or whatever the fuck, but also are like, oh, this is what I'm meant to do in life.
Yeah.
And men should not have to do this. They should be providing.
Yeah. It's such an interesting, like, crossover of two different ideologies of like, on the one hand, you know, it could be viewed as this like anti-capitalist, like I'm going to make everything myself and rely on everything myself, like the homesteader type thing. And then at the same time, this like, you know, patriarchy is everything view. Yeah. And the way in which like those ideologies are so diametrically opposed, but they all come together.
Isn't that weird?
It's so weird.
It feels really odd. Like it's almost like trying to even describe it on this podcast feels like I keep hitting a wall where I'm like, I don't know if this is making sense, because something that the Guardian talked about is that or actually, sorry, this is a Media Matters article and a Media Matters study. They created a TikTok account, and they went through and found 10 trad wife influencers. And by that, they had to have at least like 20K followers. They had to post at least as many times a week. They had criteria for like, who is a trad wife? They have to say trad wife in their bio or whatever. They followed and interacted with 10 separate trad wife accounts. They found that of the 327 videos served to their For You page following all those interactions, 100 of them, or 30%, contained conspiracy theories or apocalyptic fear mongering. So after they had liked a video of, a girl, I don't know, wearing an apron and baking a loaf of bread and talking about providing for her family, it delved into, a man talking about like, Obama's the Antichrist and here's 5 reasons why. Which again is like the algorithm, right? Because the algorithm knows that if you like one thing, you're probably gonna like these 5 other things. And they're kind of just like, they shoot in the dark for a while until you tell them what you want to see. Have you ever like run into that like on your TikTok where like you'll like something and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I'm like, on the wrong side.
You know what? I feel like my TikTok is so specifically curated for me. It's literally just all like front facing camera comedians just being like, haha, here's a silly little joke. I'm basically on like gay comedian TikTok.
Love
and that's
that.
like basically all I see.
Love that.
Yeah, so it's like a really like fun, pure space for me. And when people are like, "Oh, have you seen this TikTok trend?" I'm like, "No."
Oh, I love that.
It's yeah, it's awesome, but I can see how, I mean, yeah, even just the fact that it is so curated, like on my For You page, I hardly ever see something where I'm like, "No, I'm not interested in that," unless it's an ad. That's
yeah,
it.
yeah. I've run into a lot of because my interests change all the time. Like I'll go from like
Course.
makeup
She contains
tutorials
multitudes.
to like dog videos to like
Yeah.
hairstyling, like dance stuff. And every so often, if I get in a phase where I'm like, how to make my own bread, how to make my
Yeah.
own whatever,
Yeah.
I'll get into this like really weird sector where it's like women who are not outwardly talking about traditional values
Yeah.
or who are being, very like obvious about this is who I am, like that. But then you go to their profile and it's like, God loves all, and
You're like, "Are you
Trump
sure?"
2024 or whatever it is.
Yeah,
and
like-
it's so contradictory to like you're wearing a floor length gown in your garden barefoot, and you have tattoos. Who are you?
Who are you? People say in this country we're so divided. It's like, no, we're like, we are, but we're all so like fractured between all these different identities that like don't really gel with each other, but sometimes they just, it's like the perfect storm where things come together. Like I think about how for a long time, and this is even something that I still really struggle with, is the idea that like processed foods are not bad for you.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
food, it doesn't have that, like processed food is not morally bad. Like
Yeah. Yep.
it's only been in like recent years that I've been comfortable with like warming up frozen food, that's like prepackaged, because I do love to cook and I love like making things from scratch and like using my own ingredients because it brings me joy, but also because I see it as like, I have historically seen it as like quote unquote morally better, or like it's the right way to eat. It's like the healthier way to eat or whatever. So if I'm a person going on TikTok seeking out food from scratch because I have this belief that processed food is bad because that's what diet culture has told me, the voices of authority on making food from scratch are going to be trad wives. So of course, in my algorithm, I'm going to continue to see, like you said in that study, like 100 videos about conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
So that's just even like one example of like a path that a person could really easily fall into to start to believe some of these things that don't make sense.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said about like, we all in a way should or are encouraged to have like a healthy amount of skepticism about the systems that we live in. Obviously, as Americans, like
of course,
our system is like pretty broken compared to a lot of other places. And I think there's just a lack of common sense about like, okay, so I'm probably not gonna like, I don't know what's like a good example. Like I'm probably not gonna try to solve all my problems with a prescription medication.
Yeah.
I'm gonna like try to work on my anxiety with medication, and I'm gonna like go outside and I'm gonna try to wake up at the same time every day, and I'm gonna use these quote unquote natural things to help the problem. But just flat out saying that all of these medical advancements are wrong just because they're backed by institutions is just like really reductive and like really uninformed, especially because like vaccines are legitimately one of like the greatest inventions of modern medicine. Being able to recognize a disease, isolate it, and inject it into people to make them immune or be able to handle it better is so cool.
It's why we're all here today.
Yeah, dude. Like, have you seen? Do you ever see an article every once in a while that's like measles is back?
Yeah,
or
and
like,
you're like, yeah, bitch,
like,
I bet it is.
Or like kid in Arkansas diagnosed with the plague.
Yeah,
and you're like, what the fuck?
Now we're in a place of bubonic plague.
Yeah, dude,
Girl,
that's nuts. And everyone's like, well, you shouldn't be scared if you're vaccinated. It's like that's really how it works.
Yeah, I also have like empathy and I do want to save the children.
Yeah, I actually want to save the children.
I would like to save children from things like polio, but it's like, God, it's so hard, Morgan, because part of me is like, yes, we have to lean into the science. We need to like trust fact-checked medical institutions giving us advice. But then like when I think about the way in which like the medical profession has exacerbated eating disorders and disordered eating and weight and like dangerous weight loss and stuff like that, I'm like, girl, who can I trust? Who can I trust?
It is kind of an interesting like connection to make, right? From we're talking about this whole wellness to alt-right pipeline thing, but it's like, what happens when it's the other side, when it's like the diet industry to eating disorder pipeline?
Yes.
Yeah. It's funny that you say the thing about processed foods, because every time I think of like the people who are, or the diets or whatever that are like, you know, don't eat processed foods, eat whole, eat this, I'm like, did you know that every single person on this earth has microplastics inside of them? Yeah. And like, you can't control that because everything that we touch and do and wear is plastic. Yeah. So part of me is like, dude, you're here for a good time, not a long time. Yeah. Like, eat the fucking chips.
Just eat the chips.
Yeah. That was something I had to come to terms with in my recovery, is like, objectively, is some food more nutritionally valuable than other food? Yeah, duh. Yeah. Like, obviously there are going to be foods that have different nutrients than processed foods. Yeah. Like, but that doesn't mean that your body isn't smart enough to like, you filter out the toxins or like be able to take energy from what you feed it. It's just about like listening to your body and understanding nutrition in a way that's like gentle and not like obscuring your view of health.
Yeah. And also in a way that like, that involves some body trust. Like I remember being really into, like when I was doing Whole30, I was really into this idea of like, this is a cleanse. This is a detox. I'm detoxing my body. When now I know that like, you know, I'm fortunate to have great liver and kidney functions. And my body, I can trust it to detox itself.
Yeah. The best way to detox is to take a shit.
Girl,
literally go to the bathroom,
take a shit.
It's so so silly to say that, but it's like so true.
It's so true. Like if you are starting to think, I'm really afraid of these vaccines and the toxins that they're going to do in my body, and maybe I want to start a homestead and make almond crackers for my husband. Just go take a shit and see how you feel.
Yeah, just go take a shit. Have you this is so random, but do you watch Netflix? Like, are you on Netflix?
Yeah.
Have you seen apple cider vinegar or like the trailers at all for it?
Yes, girl, I used to be a big apple cider vinegar person. I would like take shots of apple cider vinegar. Oh my god.
Do you know who it's about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's like, it's fucking crazy. I didn't even really understand why I was taking shots of apple cider vinegar. Same. I was like, oh, it's just like good for you.
Yeah, I used to do that. My teeth would hurt.
Yeah.
But anyway, I want to do an episode on that because it's about similarly like this woman who tries to cure her cancer by drinking juice all the time and whatever. So and wild. It doesn't end up great. I won't spoil it, but it doesn't end up great. To wrap it up, I want to tell you something and then we'll get to the affirmation board, because this is like a personal story that I have been thinking a lot about lately, and makes me sad, but also like I think is a really good example of kind of how this pipeline operates. I have a friend who, unfortunately, we don't have a relationship anymore kind of because of where her beliefs have gone. Sure. Grew up in the same city. Same era. We're the same age, like same values, like very like kind of liberal, open-minded, whatever. Yeah. She moved out of state, and a few years ago, like had kind of come out to me as Christian. Wow. And what I mean by that is like she literally didn't, like she kept it a secret from me because she thought I was going to judge her. Aww. And I'll be honest, like I was very judgmental to be fair, at first. I judged her. Because it wasn't that she was like, oh, I believe in God. It was like, I believe in God and gay people shouldn't get married. And I think that women should stay at home. And I got in an argument with her because I like was asking her like, okay, so what, you think drag queens shouldn't read to kids, huh? And she's like, I mean, yeah. And it was
God. This is a white woman, right?
This is a white woman.
So it was not just like, oh, I found God or whatever. It's like she converted to white Christian nationalism.
Yes. But what happened before that, and maybe I should have started here actually, is that she has like an established career, is very good at it. Like that's what she does for a living. But she decided at one point to take a nutrition like licensing class. I think to be a nutritionist, you have to take like an online course. It's not the same as being a dietitian.
Right. So it was like a more naturopathic nutritionist.
Yeah, it's just like a course that, you do so many hours, you get to, you're certified in nutrition, whatever that means.
Totally.
So she did that. And for a while, I was so deep in my eating disorder that whatever she told me, I was like taking as gospel, right? She's like, but it was not, it wasn't very toxic. Like it was just kind of like, this is the information. Like I still drink my, sugary coffee. I still whatever. Like to me, it seemed very like normal. Okay. And then I didn't put the dots together until this year. She went from that like, okay, I'm only gonna like start eating these things. And she was always a very like health conscious person, but she lives in a city where it's like really concentrated. And they have one of those like really expensive grocery stores. Yeah. And like it's like you can get raw milk for $40 a bottle. My God. And she started like going down that rabbit hole of like, oh, I'm really gonna start feeding my body these really good things. I'm gonna start doing this. She like stopped like drinking coffee. She stopped doing all these things. And at first I just kind of thought, oh, this is just like a phase. Like she just learned all this nutrition stuff. It's going to blow off, whatever. She stopped drinking alcohol. And then she came out to me as Christian and I just kind of was like, oh, okay, cool. We got in an argument. We made up. I kind of was just like, okay, I'm just going to accept her beliefs now. I realized quickly that she was going to a mega church. She was going to a church that, it sat 2,000 people. They had these big concerts. Like her Instagram stories were like, the fucking priest on a platform or whatever, electric guitar shredding, whatever, like insanity. And recently I had to cut off my friendship with her because it went from, I want to feed my body all these good things. Oh, I don't think the government is correct. She became anti-vax. I'm a Christian. I don't believe gay people should get married. Oh, Donald Trump is amazing. And I'm so happy he's president.
And like, don't we all know that person from growing up? You know what I mean? Like, it's also like the MLM to the divorced mom to MLM pipeline. It's a real hey girl, hey girly, haven't seen you in a while. It's a real hey girly kind of situation. Yeah, but that's really sad. I'm really sorry to hear that.
Thanks. I mean, it's so interesting to kind of like, I didn't see it while it was happening. Also because she's out of state, and I think maybe if I was in the same city as her, it would be more obvious. But it was so interesting to finally connect the dots and realize that it literally just went from like, I think I want to learn a little bit more about what I'm putting into my body to now like drag queens are pedophiles and Hillary Clinton is an evil monster. And it's not even about like health anymore. It's literally just about like, the government needs to be controlled in whatever way, and Elon Musk is going to help us save the system, and we shouldn't fact check because what really is fact checking?
Totally. It's like I think really, if I had to sum it up, what it really boils down to in conclusion, I will wrap this up by saying that when we start to moralize food, when we start to attach good and bad labels to foods and different food behaviors and uphold health as morally correct. And whatever even though health has such a nebulous definition, when we start to attach those morals, that's when it gets so tricky, because if you attach your food ideology to something, then like what other kind of like morals and ideologies are you going to fall into, which is so hard, like in the even in like the anti-diet space, because like I want to say like, yeah, my stance morally is that food is neutral.
Yep.
So is that like, am I doing the same thing? Girl,
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It is difficult. And I have found, especially on this podcast, that I try to be as forthright with my opinion as possible while also creating space for other people to share their health journeys.
Yeah.
And being respectful of, like, you know, you going on a weight loss journey, you deciding to get a surgery, you deciding to do this, and recognizing that, like, we're all, whether we're against each other, for each other, we're all living under the same system that has been set up by people that we didn't necessarily like want to do that.
Yeah.
But thank you for summing that up. This has been a very intense episode.
I summed it up by saying the same thing about 3 times in a circle. And, you know, that's kind of how I do it. If you listen to Did That Age Well, you can hear me do that a lot more.
Yes. Okay. So I do love your podcast. So let's get to our affirmation board. Okay. I don't know if you've thought about this at all, because
I did think about it, but I have a new one.
Okay, cool. So you can pick a little color. What colors do we have in here?
I'm going to pick this kind of teal
color. Cute. Ooh, there's a $20 bill in here. Someone must have donated some money during a show or something.
Listeners, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. But seriously, if you have not listened to Molly's podcast, it's very fun. I was on an episode, and she basically, what Molly does is she watches old movies, and then you talk about if they aged well. Yeah. And what movie did we watch? Oh, Breakfast Club. We did
the Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
That one was really fun. That was such
really
a fun episode.
That was a really fun episode. I'm trying to convince Molly for us to do another episode where we do a movie like about diet culture. Yeah. Like Shallow Hal or like Super Size Me or something.
Oh my God. So it will be fun and funny, even if it's dark and awful.
Dark and twisty.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited to see what you write on this affirmation board, because I feel like you're a very positive person.
Thank you so much. What I've written today is need to detox, take a poop. Love, Molly.
Oh, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh, thank you. I guess I should draw a little.
Yeah, draw a little piece of poop.
Yeah, I'll just draw a little.
And while you're doing that, where can everyone find you?
Everyone can find me at Molly Bird Smith on Instagram. You can find the podcast at Did That Age Well on Instagram and at Did That Age Well Pod on TikTok.
Beautiful.
That's where you can find me.
Well, thank you for being here today, and thank you for going down the rabbit hole with me.
My God, of course. This was such a fun rabbit hole to go down. And I'm so glad that it did not lead us to QAnon, as many rabbit holes do.
I mean,
it did not lead us to say, they have a point. You know what I mean?
And you know what? Maybe after listening to this episode, someone might be like, you know what? I might go check that out.
You know what? Those ladies seem a little unhinged. Whatever they think is unhinged is probably
the truth.
You know, the truth. And if that's your journey, go for it.
Beautiful. Well, thank you guys for listening. Feel free to support the pod in any way. Send in your questions. I'll send you answers. And see you next week.
Bye.